So, first book down for the Asian Readathon, Star Daughter by Shweta Thakrar. All my reviews are spoiler reviews, FYI. Okay, so I have to disclose something before I begin this review. Let's just go through this, how I experienced it, okay? The very first chapter, on the very first page, there's a line that ends in, "The heart of New Jersey's Desi community, all under one roof." And I was like, this takes place in Edison. And then I had to put the book down for a whole entire day. Because Edison is like 10 minutes away from where I grew up. And I expend a lot of energy pretending that my childhood and that entire area of the state does not exist. Like, even when I go to New York nowadays on the train, like, as soon as we hit New Brunswick, I'm like, the outside of this window is not there. I do not see it. So, I had to take an entire day to psych myself up to read this book. And like, through no fault of the book or the author, okay? There's nothing wrong with that part of the state. It's me. Like, unless you hate highways, there's really nothing wrong with that part of the state. So I told myself, like, I gotta read this book. I committed to reading this book. It's just a book. And maybe they're not even in Edison. Maybe they're somewhere up in North Jersey. Then I hit this line. And this is not even touching on the fact that I wasn't aware this is a contemporary fantasy. I thought this was like, you know, old-timey fantasy. But that's like the smaller issue. But yet again, that's me, that's not the book. So there's a lot of personal baggage coming along with this review. I gave it 3 stars in the end. Interpret that as you will. I tried to be as objective as possible. The good part is that they get out of New Jersey and they're in the sky with the stars for like a huge chunk of the book, so it was easier to ignore then. So anyway, on to the book. It definitely has the feel of like the kind of fantasy book that like a Desi girl growing up in America would want to read. Like, kind of like classic fairy tale, but it's you and your culture. So, it does not hold your hand. If you don't know what something is, you might not know what it is unless you Google it. There are some things that are explained like in line, but not everything is. So, you know, Google is your friend. Also, it might be Google is your friend for pronunciation things. Like, even me, like, I grew up there and I was exposed to all this growing up, and even me, I was like, is that really how you pronounce that word? So the story is following a girl named Sheetal, who is half star, as the title implies. She's been living with this as a secret her entire life. At first, I was confused about the level of the secrecy because one of the big giveaways is that her hair is silver and she has to keep on dyeing it and, you know, fixing her roots. Like, that's a big issue. It's fixing the roots in the beginning. The aunt comes like, your roots are showing. People are gonna figure out what you are. And I'm like, would they? Would they? Would that actually be an issue? I mean, it might be weird seeing this young girl with like super white hair, but like people would just think she dyed it. She'd be like, you know, that's a thing now. People are very into like that gray hair dye, so I didn't understand that. And then later on, we find out that it actually glows, and still, then I was like, okay, that makes a little more sense. So anyway, it's like basically her life living this little secret life and her secret boyfriend that her dad finds out about. It was super cute. I was actually a little apprehensive about this, but the boyfriend thing was actually super cute in the beginning. So she goes over his house, they're laying down, and my camera just fell, so if I'm not in the same frame, sorry. So yeah, they have a shared dream about this guy way back in the day capturing a full real star and like putting her in a cage and like bleeding her dry for all her blood. I'm very family friendly. And you find out that the boyfriend is like the great grand nephew of that person. And obviously Sheetal freaks out. She's like, oh my god, you lied to me, because he knew that she was a star and he was keeping a secret. He's like, you lied to me. You were using me. Because the stars, what they do is that they inspire artists to be more artsy, you know, and create better art. So Dev is a singer, and she was like, you were using me to like sing better. I understood the anger in that moment, but then the argument just like stretches on. And I was done with it. I was totally done with it. It doesn't end. It doesn't end. Throughout the entire book, it's the same thing, and she will not let it go. And I'm like, dude, what was he supposed to do? Like, hey, just bring it up in conversation. I know you're a star. Like, really? Come on, girl. I know you're 16. I know you're the magical 16 that all YA protagonists are, and you have to be all YA protagonisty, but do you really need to stretch this particular argument out so much? This argument obviously throws her off emotionally. She goes home, she gets caught by her dad and her aunt. They're like, you shouldn't be dating. Mom, dad, like the elders, they control your life. So they say you're not dating. You're not dating. But she was dating behind their back. So they were like, they had like a family sit down, and then she totally lost control of her emotions and like gave her dad a heart attack with like star zappy power. That's how it starts. It definitely had the feel, this book definitely had the feel of I caused my own problem and now I need to fix it, which is not something I enjoy. That was working against this book's favor. In defense of Shito though, she was kind of screwed from the beginning. I mean, as you go on and on through the story, you realize that this eventual outburst and like burning of everything was inevitable. The thing with stars and why the dude in the dream was bleeding the one star dry is because their blood can heal people. So she tries to like bleed onto her dad because she's half star. So she's like, maybe if I bleed on him, this will heal him. It doesn't work. But it is enough to keep him alive. So now that this has happened, and the aunt's like, okay, we can't prevent this anymore. You're being starry. Here's all the details that I've been keeping from you throughout your entire life. Blah, blah, blah. You know, standard, we knew everything about you, but we didn't tell you because story. So now they're gonna go explore the magical side of Edison. That's actually really cute. It is cute. I know I got my shit going on, but the night market was pretty cool. Like, there's this long road in Edison, called Little India. What is it? What's the actual road? It's Oak Tree Road. Me and my mom used to go there all the time for food because we loved Indian food. Like, on this road, there's like this, you know, I don't know if it's actually there. I don't know if this is actually there. I never remember seeing a peacock. But there is like a peacock gate, and that opens up into the magical side of Little India, which Shweta Takrar has a picture of on her website. It's super cute. You should go check it out. I'm linking it down below. That was my favorite part of the book. Honestly, that was my favorite part, because it was like they're walking around, checking out all the magical stuff. It was kind of like in Harry Potter when they first get into Diagon Alley. It was kind of like that, but more interesting. Why were they even there? What did they need to get? Oh yeah. So the reason they were on the night market was because they were looking for these two sisters who were gonna tell Shito how to get up to the sky to see her star family. That's basically the whole point of that scene. And now we finally get out of New Jersey and we're up in the sky, and I could be like, whew, okay. What do I think of the Star Place? The Star Place it kind of had the feel of a boarding school, if that makes sense. Lunchroom drama, all that stuff. But when she gets up there, she does meet her mother, who she has some baggage with because, as far as she's concerned, her mother abandoned her when she was like a little kid. So there was emotional baggage there. She got to meet her grandparents, who are very anti-human and not really on board with helping her father. But they tell her, okay, we'll help your father, but you gotta do this thing for us. Basically, what they want her to do is, because she's half mortal, she can compete in this competition that will decide the next ruler of the celestial palace or whatever. So what happens is all the big houses, they have a mortal champion, like an artist, the best in their field, that they will inspire. And they will have like 1 hour to complete a masterpiece, and then whoever makes the best masterpiece will win. And whoever's house that is will get to rule over for whatever amount of time. I think it's until the stars die or they just retire and they're like, I'm sick of this. Someone else do this, please. There's all sorts of different arts. There's a girl who does puppetry. She's got marionettes. There's a writer. There is like a sculpture guy who does stuff out of like found pieces, found metal chunks, like a recycler sculpture. There's a painter, which standard art, and then there's Sheetal, who sings. So I thought that was interesting how they were all going to be judged together, all these different mediums, to figure out who was the best artist. And honestly, I was side-eyeing the puppet girl. But apparently she's really good. I feel like I have so much less to say about what should be the more interesting part of the book, because it was just drama. It was like teenage drama, but with like people who are hundreds of years old. And on top of all that drama, we had the drama because, of course, her singer boyfriend is up there. Because, you know, it's a book. That's how it works out. You would think that he got brought up there to sing, but no, he was brought up there as like the human companion to the writer, which is the next big drama. God, I don't even want to go into that. It's like, that's the most exhausting part of the book, that drama, because it was not drama. Okay, I guess maybe it is kinda for like the old curmudgeonly stars, but for like everyone else, should it really have been drama? Long story short, the writer and the singer boyfriends, they're cousins, so they're obviously both related to the guy who stole the star and was bleeding her dry and stuff. And that star was Sheetal's grandmother's sister. But it's been so long. It's really been so long. It's like hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of years. Why? Why are you so pissed at these two dudes? Why? They didn't even think you were real a couple of months ago. You know, it's one thing if like you had like a slave owner way back when and they got super rich and now you're still super rich from all that slave ownery. They're completely disconnected from that guy back then. You know, there's no benefit for them being that guy's great whatever. I hated it. I did not like that part of the book. I was like, can we please just like do something else? But then once I thought that, I realized there really wasn't anything else. I mean, there was the mystery of why the grandparents were like so against humans, but then again, it wasn't really that much of a mystery. Anyway, I'm not going to talk too much about the end of the book. I could talk a little bit about something in the ends that we all know is going to happen. I mean, obviously she's going to stay with her boyfriend, so I'll talk about that. Stars, which she is, when they turn 17, even half stars become full stars. Stars live for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Okay? This book does not have a happy ending. It has a happy ending, but it does not have a happy ending. You know why? Because she's gonna outlive her boyfriend. It's not gonna end well. She's gonna be like 17-ish, and he's gonna be 90 and dead. I know that that's like a thing. Was that May-December romance? That's just, I hate that. I hate May-December romance. Because how does that end well? Like, how does it end well? How are you, let's say you're the young person, right? You're looking at the person you love withering and dying in front of you. Obviously, not a good situation. Well, let's say you're the old person. You're with this person that used to be the same age as you. Now they're still that same age, but you're dying. How do you not have negative feelings about that? Even if you led the best life ever, and you still love them, and you're kind of okay with dying. How do you not have negative feelings about leaving them behind? How? It's just not a good trope. I hate it so much. But I still give it 3 stars. It was still fun to read. I mean, it's not anything groundbreaking, but I feel like it's a book that some people need. There are people out there who need this book, who need to see themselves in the story like this. It definitely had the feeling that was what it was written for. Like, if the author said that she was like, I wrote this book because this is the book I wanted to read when I was like 17, I believe it because it feels like it. So, 3 stars. It's a good book. Google is your friend. That was the Asian Readathon book. Now we're moving on to the not Asian Readathon book that I had to clean up. I had to finish reading before I started this. Winter's Orbit, Everina Maxwell. If you are uncomfortable with emotional, physical, and sexual abuse, bail out now. It's not like huge, but it's here. I'm talking about it. There's a lot to say about Winter's Orbit. I did like the book though. Let me just toss it out there. I like the book. But wow. It left me with a bad feeling. It ended happy. It did end happy. But I was reading this book like, please tell me that that's not. No, please. No. Basic premise, okay? There's a multi-planet empire called the Iskat Empire. One of the main characters is a prince of this empire. He's like the 44th, whatever. He's nowhere near the throne. But he's a prince. He gets called into his grandmother, the emperor's, whatever. And she's like, hey, you gotta marry this dude. One of your cousins is married to him. But he just got killed in an accident. So you need to marry this dude instead. You know, we gotta keep that alliance going. And the prince is like, excuse me? His husband's been dead for a month, you want me to marry him? Is that what's happening here? And Empress like, yeah, you're doing that. Bye-bye. That's the book. So we obviously get tossed into this marriage very quickly. The Prince Kiam, that's his name, Kiam, he is super nice. He's actually a super cool dude. He's very friendly. He could chat with anyone. He's that kind of guy that people are like, it's super unrealistic. But I actually knew a dude like that. He's so exhausting. People like that are so exhausting. Like, they're super fun to be around. But like, this friend of mine, like, I would hang out with him for a couple days and I'd be like, I need to not see you for a week. He's gonna be like, I love you, but goodbye, please. So Kiam, he's obviously concerned. He, for some reason, thinks that this guy that just got forced into political marriage with his other cousin was in love with his cousin. No. But, obviously, he was worried that there would be negative emotions because it's been a month. Like, the day before they get married, the other guy was at the final funeral ceremony for his dead husband. Like, it was boom, we're getting married. He was very worried about, like, oh crap, I need to be super nice to this guy because this is a crap situation. I gotta be good to this dude. So he's being nice, he's taking care of the press, he's doing all this stuff. And then we get into the other guy's head because this is a dual POV book. Well, that's when things started to get sketchy. And this guy, Janin, his name is Janin. Janin is so worried about everything. It's like, I gotta be perfect. I gotta make sure that my husband, my new husband to be, has everything he needs whenever he wants it. I gotta be anticipating his everything, his every thought. I gotta be whatever. Oh my god, this went wrong. It's all my fault. Oh my god. And I was reading that and I was like, this is a little much, but like, it's a strange situation, and they need this political alliance to keep their hold over this one like intergalactic roadway. I'll discuss that later. So they need this. So maybe he's like just nervous that he has to be nice to this guy or else his planet will suffer. And he doesn't know anything about Prince Kiam besides the fact that he was in the news a while ago for being a party kid. And that's all he knows about him. And then like later in the wedding ceremony, he's really hitting himself because during the signing, he knocks over the ink accidentally and like ruins all the marriage documents, and like all the press is taking pictures of it. He messed up. He really messed up. So I could see it. I could see it. It's like, oh God, I just messed up in front of the entire world and other worlds, and all the other worlds watching. They watched me spill this ink. Ugh. So in that first chapter, I was not suspicious about how much he was hating on himself. Okay? There was a little bit of suspicion at the end when he was like, okay, now I gotta sleep with this guy. Thank God he did not. Like, Kiam was like, oh, this is like, he kind of thought for a second that like Janin did want to sleep with him, but then he quickly realized he did not want to sleep with him, cut it off, walked away, and set up like a bed in the living room. So Janin has the bedroom, Kiam sleeps in the living room. So that I liked about him. Kiam was like super nice. He's like, we just gotta, you know, appear like we love each other outside in the hallways. Even though there's no there's no way that could be true because they only knew each other for a day. But whatever. Royal bullshit. But then we keep on getting more and more and more into Janin's head, and it's quickly apparent that the guy he was married to before was not great, was very abusive, and little word I can't say on YouTube in a sexual way. That wasn't fun. So basically it's a story about this guy who is just totally beaten down. He hasn't been allowed to speak to his family for years. And actually I like how this is hinted in the beginning, because we don't find out about that until later on in the book. The day of the wedding, when you're in Prince Kiam's point of view, Janin's sister calls and asks Kiam, can I please speak to my brother? And Kiam, not knowing what the hell is going on, he's like, well yeah, just call him. And she's like, but can I please speak to my brother? So Kiam's like, I think that maybe brother and sister had a fight and Janin doesn't want to speak to her anymore. So he tells her, hey, yeah, I'll mention you called if he brings it up, and then like kills the phone. That was great. It seems like such a minor thing, but it gets you thinking a little bit, and also sets it up super great for later on when you find out that he's been banned from calling her. He's been cut off that much because his other husband was a gigantic douche. And it's good he's dead. Okay, so now at this point I should discuss why they're getting married. There's this intergalactic roadway, and it has openings near certain planets. And there's this like organization that takes care of it, that maintains it, and they are called like the Resolution or something, whatever. And they decide who has access to this roadway. And only planets with stable governments and stable alliances are allowed to use the roadway. No fighting in the roadway. For most of the book, we have no idea why this is so important. It's like, who are these people? Why are we listening to these people? Okay? You're an empire. You've conquered worlds. You're watching Prince Kiam and Janin like struggle so much to keep this alliance together. And through all this BS, and like the emperor's freaking out like, what are you doing? And it's like, why are we doing this? Just use the roadway. They can't stop. Like, how are they gonna stop you? And you don't find out until like almost the end of the book that organization is backed by like the universe's largest and most powerful empire ever. And then it makes sense. It's like, oh yeah, you wouldn't want to mess with that organization because then the freaking, the high chain's gonna come down on you. That should not have been a secret. That should not have been a reveal. That should have been explained much earlier in the book, because that would not have that wasn't a spoiler, that wasn't anything, that should have just been explained. So anyway, that's why the political alliance has to be there. And like the main plot of this book is that it's in jeopardy. Because the auditor, the guy who goes and reviews you as the government, to see if you were allowed to use the roadway. It's like, yeah, we don't like you because your husband just got murdered. So we don't like the instability in this region. And unless you can prove to me otherwise, for the next 20 years, you're going to be cut off from this intergalactic roadway. And what happens when you're cut off from the intergalactic roadway is that other empires who are allowed to use the intergalactic roadway will come and take you over. So this is like, you need to convince this guy that you're totally in love, or a lot of people are gonna die. It's heavy. Now, up until we get that reveal that that is the big problem that's gonna happen, no one knew that that guy was murdered. No one knew. They thought he just died in an accident. Prince Kiam and Jaden need to figure out why Prince Tam got murdered, how he got murdered. They have to prove that it was actually a murder, and then they need to figure out who did it in, like, what was it, 2 weeks? I think it was like something ridiculous. I forget the exact amount of time. And then on top of all that, they have to convince everyone that they're in love. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And from Prince Kiam's perspective, the big hurdle on this is he thinks that, like, Jaden hates him because he has replaced his husband, and it's like this whole situation sucks. That the reason that he's not talking to him, or he doesn't want, like, anything to do with him, kind of shuts him out, is because of this bad situation. And Jaden's perspective, he's just confused because he's like, how do I be a better husband? All this stuff, blah blah blah. And basically it goes through, and they slowly uncover the fact that Jaden was abused to all hell. There were definitely a lot of times I was reading this, it was like, please tell me that this is not what I think it is. And then it was. And then that would happen again. In a way, it's happy because now, like, Jaden is with a guy who's actually, like, a decent dude. And, like, obviously they do actually fall in love with each other. I mean, it's a book. So it's a journey of healing. And, like, I'm not even that sensitive to that kind of stuff, like domestic abuse. Like, I can read about stuff like that. But I was feeling like, it was making me uncomfortable. So if you are someone who is sensitive to that, maybe don't read this book. It's very, very satisfying to know that the man was murdered. Prince Kiam, he's like, at one point, he's like, I'm so pissed off that this guy got murdered before he was punished for doing the things he did to you. And yeah, hard agree. Definitely. There is something very interesting that was in this book, though. I mean, the book is interesting. The whole entire book. It was a fun read. I blasted through that book, despite everything I just said. But there was an interesting concept in that gender in the Empire is entirely determined by what you're wearing. To be specific, if you're wearing like a wood accessory, like wood necklace, bracelet, whatever, earrings, you're a man. That's it. Full stop. And if you're wearing flint, if you're wearing like a flint, whatever, same accessory, like a barrette or earrings or bracelet, necklace, whatever, you're a woman. And if you're wearing glass, like, was anyone wearing glass? Yes, there was someone wearing glass. I forget what they were wearing though. But if you're wearing a glass accessory, then you're non-binary. Very interesting. Like, it didn't matter what you looked like, you were that gender. Okay? But the further along I got in the book, the more I was like, why do they even have gender? Like, there's no gender roles. So why do they have gender? Maybe that doesn't make sense. But, there are no gendered, titles. Like I said before, the emperor is a woman, but they call her emperor. The prince is a unisex title. Like, none of the titles are gendered at all. These people aren't treated any differently. They aren't received any differently. Nothing is different. So why do we have gender? Like, there's no need for gender. It's easier to write in English if there's gender, but in the universe, why would there be gender? We divide people into gender and treat them differently. we probably shouldn't, but that's what we do. Like, that's why we have genders as opposed to like sex, because obviously, sex, gender different, unless you're a TERF, when you could get the fuck out of here. But why do they have gender? It has no utility. We still have a utility because we're like, we're still trying to like move past all that. We're on the way to try and moving past all that. But they seem to already be past it. So why do they still have it? Imperialism. So obviously empires suck. And I was wondering, are they gonna address this empire thing? Because they were talking about political issues in between the larger empire and Janen's world. So I was like, are they going to address the fact that like they took over this world? Or is this going to be all about gaining access to the intergalactic roadway and the political aspect within the political BS of the empire? And either way would have been fine. What path did they take? They took the worst one. How do I explain this? Throughout the whole book, they're not addressing the empire at all. Like they're dropping little hints, bad blood between like the empire and the one world that Janen is from. But then at the end, in order to gain access to this roadway again, Janen and Kiem use access to the roadway as blackmail to the emperor to sign an agreement that makes the empire a federation instead of an empire, which honestly I believed, because at that point I realized what was on the table. Like they were saying, hey, we're a federation or we all die and become part of like a bigger empire. So I believed that she would have signed that document. What I didn't believe was how well she took it. You little rascal, you've always been a little troublemaker. Really, your grandson just destroyed your entire empire and you're this cool with it? I would rather that this never got addressed at all and we just ended with them living happily ever after in the shit empire you built. This is bad. Like there was no way she would have given that up that easily. There would have been hell to pay. In fact, you know what? Both of them get promotions. Like, Prince Kiem gets promoted to, like, this diplomatic position, and I forget what Janen got, but he got something. He got some kind of ambassadorial stuff. And I was like, what? You should have just left it. You should have just left it. You should have committed from the beginning, or you should have just left it be. You half-assed it. There's no half-assing this kind of thing, and you half-assed it. So, that's my biggest complaint about the book. Okay, I've babbled for like an hour. And this is gonna take all night to edit, so I am ending it here. I put the links down below for the 2 books, and let's see if I get through next week's books, because it really came down to the wire on this one. Like, I finished reading Star Daughter last night. See you next week. They have like a shared dream. Oh shit.